So what I think Rooster Teeth is doing at this point is, so first and foremost, like I said, Winter just saved Marrow's life here. It's really subtle here. It's really hard to pick up and notice, but the tell of when metal, like Ironwood Semblance, is like hostile taking over is when you look at Ironwood's eyes. It's really hard to notice, but the first time you see this is when Ironwood shoots Oscar at the end of Volume 7.
James, it's what my friends call me. To you, it's General.
During that point, you can literally see the light leave Ironwood's eyes when he says, James is who my friends call me. To you, it's General. And like he blinks, and when he opens his eyes again, dead, dull, like no light, just like an apathetic, dull, like shade on his eyes. So just look at his eyes. Like, look at his eyes, man. They're dull, they're dead, they're gone. And just in his mannerisms too, he's not listening. He's not processing anything that's happening. His body is simply reacting, right? He's telling everybody, yeah, I'm going to take out Mantle if they force my hand. I'm not joking. I'm not messing around. I'm about it. I'm about to do this if they push me. And Marrow's like bleeding out his heart to this man. Like, I trusted you. How could any of you guys do this? No one's thinking about what like, no one's thinking. Like, that's just the thing. Nobody's thinking. And so what I think is happening right now is because they're in literally like critical like they're at code red, code black level, right? And like his semblance is like, yo, bro, I'm gonna take over because this is like some serious shit, and you need to make sure that you're man enough to deal with whatever happens. You got someone talking, yelling in your face, keeping you from your goal, making you second guess your thoughts. That's not gonna happen. That's not gonna help your situation. So what are you gonna do? When he turns around, you're gonna shoot him in the back. And that's the most like fucked up thing about this whole thing, right? At this point, I legitimately pity what's going on with Ironwood because I don't think he's in the right mindset. Like, I genuinely think this is like a mental health takeover of his semblance. It's really, and I'll be honest, right? Like, before I even get into anything, I think it is a huge disservice that Kruby did not find a way to implement, talking about, mentioning, bringing up, referencing this semblance before now. Because we have 3 chapters left, and I feel like if they, because like, I know what's happening with Ironwood right now, because I know what his semblance is. I can kind of contextualize his actions. They don't, his semblance isn't an immediate excuse for his act, for what he's doing. But I know why he's doing this, and I know that his semblance is allowing him to do these very tragic and heinous things, because at the end of the day, you know, the ends justify the means. There's a very palpable quote from the director of Project Freelancer for any Red versus Blue fans out there, and I actually tweeted that. I think it was last volume, Volume 7. I literally quote tweeted, like, word for word, like what the director said during the Project Freelancer storyline.
Dear Chairman, I don't give a damn about your committee and its opinions on my work. Have you forgotten, sir, we were at war? A fight with an alien race for the very survival of our species? I feel I must remind you that it is an undeniable, and may I say a fundamental quality of man, that when faced with extinction, every alternative is preferable.
Right, and it's this philosophy, this idea that, like, if we are facing death, if we're facing a threat that has the ability to wipe us out as a species altogether, then what does it matter if I level a city, if that helps the overall goal of us surviving? And what that kind of sacrifices is your humanity. What you really have to ask yourself is it worth saving humanity at the cost of humanity itself? The whole ends justify the means thing is like, the means just never end. It's like, you can use that excuse for anything, but at the same time, where is the line drawn for Ironwood? First off, it was the closing of the borders, right? Then it was mandatory curfews for everybody. 24-hour surveillance from Mantle and everybody else involved. And then it escalated from there to everyone's under arrest until we get this situation settled. Then it turned into, I'm gonna level Mantle unless you work with me. Like he keeps moving the goalpost. It's like, okay, first it's this, now we're gonna escalate it. Now we're gonna escalate it. So for Ironwood, like, it's getting worse and worse. He even said it to Watts. He said, I will sacrifice whatever it takes to stop her. And like, that's what they want. They want Ironwood to be in the worst mindset ever. And I think a lot of people forget this because the villains know James. Like, they know him. They literally said when Watts and Tyrion were getting ready to leave at the end of I think it was volume 6, when they were getting ready to, like, go off on their mission.
Bro and the children are taking the lamp to Atlas.
Not if I can help it.
And they're being led by Ozpin.
So soon?
He's the only man with a chance of getting through to Ironwood. If that happens...
Then what did you come here for? To say farewell. There's been a change in plans. Her Grace must act swiftly if we are to prevail. If General Ironwood comes to his senses and calls upon aid from Vacuo, all may be lost for us. And so the good doctor and I are being sent to Atlas to prepare.
Prepare for what?
Tyrion! It's time.
They know that if they push Ironwood to the point where he doesn't trust anyone, I'd rather deal with this military than call for help. I'd rather deal with this myself than to confide into Ozpin or even Oscar. Then they win. And that's like the worst case scenario for him. And I don't think anybody in this show knows about his semblance because it's very unclear. It's very weird that Winter hasn't even brought it up or mentioned it to like the Aesops or someone that's like, hey, the general's not all there. He's not, or she didn't even like ask him himself. Does Ironwood understand the severity of his semblance here? Is he just allowing it to hostile takeover? Is it uncontrollable? Does it really become a topic of mental health? He can't control what it does to him the same way that Crow can't control his bad luck. And this is where I think Kruby kind of dropped the ball. In the live stream last year at RTX, they said there's so many other things that are important, and they felt like this was something that wasn't as important as everything else that they had to get on screen, which I think that's I don't think that's true. I think it's quite the opposite. I think not having context to what Ironwood's doing makes everybody that's watching the show who isn't in the know about everything, it makes them think, oh, Ironwood just fucking became a villain. He just like lost his shit. This is how he truly feels. Ironwood kind of needs help. Like, and nobody here is really able to kind of figure out the problem. It's kind of sad at the end of the day when you see his situation here, because again, there are a lot of tells about it. Even when like Winter went to go and like punch him, right? He was about to shoot Marrow in the back, but instead he retracts his gun because like Winter plays it up, right? And Winter knows that if she didn't do that, Marrow would have just got capped. She follows up. She's like, "Oh, you wanna have a collar? I'll give you one." You know, and she's like playing it up like, "Oh, this guy's a traitor. I'll take care of him." You know, making sure like, okay, Ironwood, like basically she was acting right there. When in reality, it's like, okay, I'm conflicted about all of this. Marrow's conflicted about all of this. Ren just told both of us that on the ship. So at the very least, having both of them together, she's sending him to the brig where Crow and Robin just broke out. And I feel like the people that came out of the elevator were them two on their way to the brig to put Marrow there. And the four of them are gonna hopefully put their fucking heads together and figure something out. Because if anyone's gonna take down Ironwood, it could be potentially this four-man group. It could be, you know, because Marrow has like the stay semblance. Like, use that on the general and then figure out a plan. Marrow, hold him there. We'll figure out what's up. We'll put him in cuffs or gravity cuffs because gravity dust best dust. You know, you want to know what the worst thing about this too was? He was going to shoot Marrow with the gravity dust gun. His black gun is the gravity gun. His white gun has the regular bullets. I don't know what the fuck that would have done to him. I've watched the Watts versus Ironwood fight enough to know the distinction between the two guns. But yeah, that was his gravity gun that he was about to shoot. And nobody, he's just running reckless and there's no one around to help him. I don't know what it's going to take for them to kind of see that, but 90% of people watching the show right now don't know what I just said. They don't know that Ironwood has a semblance that kind of almost inhibits his ability to act rationally or act with compassion or empathy in his heart, it kind of makes him like heartless. It basically gives him a steel heart. His actions can be done and he's not affected by consciousness of his decisions, the weight of his decisions, or anything like that. I just wish that Kruby gave that a little bit more importance. And I don't know if they'll address this at RTX or anything, but that's something that I want to ask. Like, how much influence did Ironwood Semblance have over him during Volume 7, and especially this volume? Do they think that had any type of impact in how the community reacted to his decisions? Because I honestly think most people see him as this villain because of the fact that they don't really understand his mental state. Yeah, and so, like, again, I just wanted to put that out there because I think it's very interesting what's happening here. I really just feel bad for Ironwood. Literally, like, digging himself deeper and deeper with each of his actions, and I don't know if he has much agency when it comes to it. I love James. I love his character. It's very tragic, actually. It's what I put in my last video, but his actions are just getting worse and worse and worse, and I feel like him killing off all of his... You know what I mean? Like, even the Aesops, like, the only person that's really not affected by this, again, fuck Harriet, but it's Harriet Bree. You even see, like, Elm, she was like, I'm not completely in agreement with this either. You have to follow orders. And then freaking Vine looks like he just aged like 10 years. This shot right here, he literally looks just like a skull. He kind of looks like the skull emoji. But yeah, I don't know. And then, like, obviously Elm's having second thoughts now. So I think everybody else is going to defect, with the exception of Harriet Bree, because she's a dog to the military. And I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen from here. If he levels Mantle, it's going to be 10 times worse, because even if he doesn't level Mantle, taking the relic out, if someone else gets a hold of that relic and uses it for something else, Mantle's fucked anyway. The people are in those mines. The people in Atlas are in the tunnels. And so the tunnels is going to be the first point of impact, along with the people that are in the tunnels, and just gonna crush each other, and then everything's gonna collapse on top of them, and that's the volume. That's the Volume 8 finale, you know? Ironwood has no one to blame but himself. There's a little bit of blame to go everywhere, right? Team Ruby herself has a lot of introspective moments here, mentioning like she wasted a lot of time. I won't say that they're completely in the wrong for distrusting Ironwood, but look at the situation. Look what happens when he's pushed. He really can't be trusted now. So yeah, those are generally my thoughts on the situation, on the severity of Ironwood's condition, his semblance, his mental health. I really wish Kruby did a better job at emphasizing this to the viewer base, because it's like so much gravity to his actions. They're not excusable, but they at least let people sympathize, or like they're able to pity him a little bit more, because it's like, I almost kind of feel bad because I actually don't know if this is all you right now. But yeah, I don't know. Those are just my thoughts on the situation with Ironwood. Once again, he's one of my favorite characters. I think there's a lot of stuff that can be unraveled now from Winter and Marrow's perspective, along with Crow and Robin. If Crow can, like, literally, like, level his fucking head out right now and not focus so much on just killing Ironwood, because that's the last thing that needs to be addressed here, because that's really going to push him. He's going to be like, I can't trust anybody, because now people are coming for my head. So we'll just have to wait and see. I love Ironwood. I truly enjoy his character, and there are just some things like I don't know if them mentioning his semblance tomorrow or in the, like, there's 3 chapters left. Like, how, if they don't mention it at all, it's like, well, why don't you think that's important to mention for his state? I don't know. It's tough. You can't turn yourself into a monster to save humanity. And that's kind of how I feel about Ironwood right now. I think I don't think they're treating him like a monster. There's a lot of nuance to the situation, and when you take that out, that's all you're kind of left with. You're kind of left with, oh, this is who Ironwood truly is. He's willing to kill people and do something really petty to get what he wants, when in reality, it's kind of like the thing he needs is being kept from him by a third party who really has no business or authority to keep the maiden from him, but he's trying to leverage. He's pushing himself to that degree, but his semblance will push him up. The semblance will push him to that next level. But if you don't know about the semblance, all you kind of are left with is like, oh, well, yeah, he is just a shitty monster. The weird thing about it is they don't talk about the semblance at all, but they telegraph it with his eyes. So it's like the semblance is present in show, but you wouldn't know that unless they told you. It's weird. Like, they're like half and halfing it, which is kind of odd. We don't know what they have to remove versus what they leave in, but everything that they're putting in the show is important to the plot. They can't flush out the show for whatever reason. I'm surprised that the show is still on like a 12 to 14 chapter run, like episode release, and I'm not gonna pretend I know their rundown, how much money they make a year, how much it costs to produce an episode. You know, I'm not in the know on that, so I'm not gonna make a entitled opinion about like, oh, the show's been going on for so long, why aren't the episodes longer? Well, technically the episodes are longer than they have. They're longer than they've ever been, technically, and with 14 chapters, it's some of the longest the show's ever run. But at the same time, like, if you had a bit more time, there's so much more you could jam pack in here. And I just don't know if it's like a mandate from their corporate overlords, or if it's like a level of like the budget constraints of like, this is how much we can spend on animating, everything else that goes into making the show. But yeah, this is something that they should have addressed. They should have put this in the show. I've never really experienced something like this. I'm pretty sure this happens like with like TV shows or movies or whatever. Like the season ends and then afterwards they're like, oh, by the way, this happened that we never addressed in the show. It's like, well, that has no bearing on my impression of the show. And technically that can kind of ruin a show after the fact, depending on what's revealed. So here's the thing. I think it's kind of like an she overwrote her past mistake of like, hey, I know I fucked up before, Ironwood, but look at me now. Like, I'm on your side. I'm not a traitor. I just made a really bad judgment call. Whereas he was about to shoot Marrow in the back. So I think I can understand why he's overlooking that previous thing, because that was his leverage to get Penny, but now he's figured out an even better way. It's like, and that's another thing too. He was gonna leverage the lives of Jean, Ren, and Yang. Lord knows he probably would have killed them if they didn't get Penny, and then he would have moved on to Mantle. You know what I mean? So he would have killed 3 huntsmen, and then moved on to Mantle, and then killed off Mantle. I can see why mentally he's just willing to completely let that pass, because he's got a better plan in place of the thing that she did that costed him a plan. Technically, fuck, man, this sucks. If Ozpin never did anything, the bomb would have gone off and Ironwood wouldn't have any backup plan. So, like, the fact that Ironwood did that and the fact that Winter let them go simultaneously led to the butterfly effect of Ironwood's current decision-making, which is super weird. Like, everything is completely like, Ozpin doing that, Oscar doing that, he wouldn't have known that these would have been the situations that were led to now. They're probably thinking, I wonder if that bomb was going to be used on the whale, but now it's being used on Mantle. Fuck, Ozpin, you should have just let them do it. But how would they have known, you know? There's a lot of serendipity that's happened in the show, in the last couple of volumes especially, like Gravity, for example. Cinder was not a part of any of the plans. It got into Ironwood's head that Cinder was in on it. Hazel was probably there too when he wasn't. Like, and that was just all coincidental. All coincidental. So yeah, long story short, Ironwood Semblance, not the best. Not the best, dude. Not the best at all. It's a big sad all around, ladies and gentlemen.